Good morning and welcome to today's public hearing. The time is 10:07 on Monday, October 7th, 2019, and we are in conference room 2160C on the second floor of 100 Church Street. My name is Patrick Scotti, and I am Executive Agency Counsel and Market Manager of the New York City Business Integrity Commission, otherwise known as BIC or the Commission. Thank you for attending and participating in today's hearing. BIC is conducting this hearing as required by the rules of the City of New York. BIC must hold a public hearing every odd year before October 31st regarding the maximum rates charged by private trade waste carters for the collection, removal, and disposal of trade waste, also known as the rate cap. BIC published the hearing notice in the City Record on August 29, 2019. We also disseminated a copy of the notice via email to all New York City local elected officials, all 59 community board managers, several media organizations in the city, and other interested parties. Lastly, we made available a copy of the hearing notice on BIC's website. Today's hearing gives the interested parties, including private trade waste carters and the customers they service, an opportunity to present their positions on the rate cap so that the Commission may gain a better understanding of the current state of the commercial trade waste industry and how the rate cap impacts the industry. The current rate cap was put in place in 2018. The New York City rules state some of the factors that BIC may consider when evaluating the rate cap, which include the Producer Price Index, commonly referred to as the PPI, available data on the trade waste industry, and any other factors that may be relevant to assessing a fair and reasonable return to licensees and the protection of customers from unreasonable charges. The rules also state that the proponents of a change in the rate cap bear the burden of demonstrating on an industry-wide basis that existing rates are inconsistent with the standards for maximum rates. Thus, we are here to listen to you on this issue. We hope that your statements will be supported by studies and other forms of empirical data. But this hearing is the beginning of our fact-finding process on this issue. We will continue to have more discussions with interested parties after this hearing. After we have gathered all pertinent information, we will then be in a position to decide how to adjust the rate cap, if at all. A court reporter is present today and will record the hearing. The hearing is also being video recorded. You may present an oral statement or submit written comments. BIC will carefully consider all the comments it receives today at the hearing and all written comments it receives until November 7, 2019. The Commission's Director of Policy, Salvador Arona, will begin calling those of you who wish to speak this morning in the order in which you signed in. When you speak, please state your full name and affiliation and speak slowly and clearly so that the court reporter can understand and accurately transcribe your statement. We also ask that you limit your statement to 5 minutes.
Our first speaker is Steve Shingaris.
Good morning. My name is Steve Changaris. I'm the New York City Chapter Director for the National Waste and Recycling Association, and we're here today to talk about the rate cap. Thank you to the BIC and the staff for putting this hearing on, and we're fulfilling the statutory mandate for biennial review. We've submitted full written comments. It'll be on the record. I'm just going to summarize real basically our comments today. I've been with the Trade Association for 28 plus years, been active in New York City. Since the beginning of time, it seems, the chapter's called for the removal of the rate cap. Today, you talked about the maximum rate cap. We're going to just go on the record once again simply to ask for the removal of the rate cap. We've made all the cases in the past before. The industry is well regulated. Everyone is licensed by BIC. The background is checked. They're competent companies to conduct business, and the rate cap gets in the way of normal business relationships with their customers. It impedes progress in terms of developing new programs and services. It impedes capital development with trucks and other equipment and facilities needed to run a waste, recycling, and organics business. And it's a remnant from a distant era that we don't need, particularly when the fitness and integrity of the industry has been well established by the BIC background and in fitness and integrity review process. So we've made that call for a long time. We understand there are former officials from the BIC and others who call for the rate cap removal. New York City, we also plan on the testimony, is one of the few cities in the country, if not the only, that does this. There's just no rate regulation of the commercial sector like this in other parts of the country. The one point that we've made in more recent testimony, and we understand that there's a big a rolling spear out there and there's a lot of activity going on. And while we're calling for the removal of the rate cap, we think it's the righteous thing to do in terms of a business sense. We understand that as a governing agency and as the City of New York, that just might not happen. And to the extent that that will not happen, we offer a counter view or another thought. And that thought is that the city should seriously entertain a minimum. Years ago, I worked in some other legislative efforts that I think the theory on the rate cap is that you want to protect customers about overcharging or whatever the theory there is. But again, as we would argue, if you have a fit industry with good actors, the charge in the marketplace is a normal thing. It floats and it's competitive. But in a rate cap system, with only guarding against the high end, you forgot about the low end dysfunctions. So, and we're very concerned now with all the requirements for new organics management, with all the truck and air emissions requirements, all the investments we have to make in this industry to keep it brisk and going forward, and being the kind of industry New York City wants it to be, that we think there's a very good case to make that you shouldn't charge below a minimum rate. And we encourage the commission to look at that as a possibility for a recommendation to the change to the law, that if you're going to be steadfast in your support of and management of the rate cap law, take a hard look to see and make sure that there's a minimum, and that minimum will then go to help ensure further that the trucks will be better equipment, that the guys and the men and women working on the trucks will get paid according to the standards that's acceptable in this community, and that the industries will be able to reinvest appropriately and not trying to fend off marketplace competition where the pricing for the service is below the cost of delivery. So that's the testimony today. Thank you for your time.
Our next speaker is Andy Moss.
Good morning. Thank you for having this hearing. My name is Andrew Moss. I'm with Waste Connections, and I am here to testify. I've submitted written comments. I'm here to kind of summarize our position as to why since the last increase, our costs have far exceeded the producer price index. That's primarily because of two reasons. One is the capital expenditures required to upgrade our fleet to meet the city mandated emission standards. And second is the continued deterioration in the market value of recycled materials. The cost of a 32-yard rear load packer is nearly $400,000. At Waste Connections, we add additional safety features that raise the cost to make it more expensive than a simple garbage truck. Our trucks are configured with high-intensity lighting packages, side guards, quick-tip automated loading systems which save on the wear and tear of our workers. And while we believe these safety investments and the training and their usage are vital to what we know is a very dangerous industry, there's only one way to pay for these improvements, and that's through the rates that we charge our customers. As the Commission is aware, and as we've previously testified, Local Law 145 of 2013 requires 2007 emission standards or greater for all commercial waste vehicles by the end of this year, 2019. This has resulted in an accelerated capital investment by Waste Connections to meet this mandate. In an ordinary year, we may purchase approximately 5 new trucks. In order to be compliant with this law, however, we've had to purchase a total of 30 new trucks for a capital investment over $11 million. This year alone, we spent over $5 million. And again, the revenue needed to make up for this investment is enormous. The revenue we collect also has to pay for disposal, salaries, rent, insurance, and the other costs of running a business, all of which have gone up since the last rate increase. And as also has been well publicized, the recycling market has been dramatically impacted by China's decision to close its markets to recycled material from the United States. The value of cardboard, paper, and plastic have fallen significantly since the last rate increase, with no near-term recovery in sight. Glass, which we must collect, has no intrinsic value and only acts as a contaminant to the remainder of the recycled material we collect. We've gone from being paid to collect recycled material to having to pay to dispose of it. As a result, we've had to charge more to make up for the lost revenue and need the rate cap to be adjusted accordingly. Essentially, the MRFs, the material resource facilities where we bring our material, the cost that, the revenue that they derive has dropped, and their processing costs have simultaneously increased, which they have been passing on to hauling companies who collect the material. We have to pass it on to our customers. There's only one way to do that, and that's through an adjustment of the rate cap. Finally, organic waste collection is more sensitive to the rate cap due to its heavy weight. We believe organic waste collection should either have a separate rate or not be regulated at all. As the Commission is aware, we are not allowed to charge for specialized containers that must be provided for this service. Compost organics is collected in either 64 or 35-gallon toters, which cost approximately $100 per unit and only have a 2-year life expectancy. At 200 pounds per toter, the maximum we can charge by weight is $27.74. Organic waste collection requires specialized trucks that cannot be used for regular waste or recycling to the material's high moisture content. And because organic stops are so scattered and specialized, route density, which is ordinarily found in garbage and recycling collection, cannot be realized. The cost, bottom line is the cost to send a truck to an organic stop can far exceed the rate cap. There's no incentive for us to expand the service beyond what is mandated. And notably, the Department of Sanitation has just noticed that they're proposing a rule to expand the number of customers that will be mandated to recycle. So bottom line is we offer this as an add-on for customers that request it as part of their service. We're required to do so, but it is not a market that we are looking to grow. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm happy to provide the Commission with any additional material. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ron Bergamini.
Hi everyone, I'm Ron Bergamini, CEO of Action Environmental Group, the parent company of Action Carting, the largest hauler in New York City. The industry has changed a lot over the last 10 years and it continues to change. And once again, we believe the rate cap's an artificial constraint on prices and it's time for it to go, though we understand the practical and political constraints there. However, a way to do this a little more gently perhaps is to finally allow for separate line item services. Most customers are very surprised to learn that we cannot charge a separate fee for Saturday, Sunday, 7-day-a-week service. We cannot charge for having to send a bill. We're trying to get everyone to go electronic, just like your cable company does and your utility companies go do. We can't charge that $3 a month bill, $5 a month bill. And when others charge us a fuel surcharge or a toll surcharge, we cannot pass that along. And in my view, that creates more transparency, not less, Because otherwise what happens is, since we can only bill by weight and volume, we wind up baking those prices into the global rate, if you will. With respect to the commercial recycling laws, we are fully in favor of recycling. However, you can be the best at picking something up. If someone doesn't want to purchase it from you, there's no point in doing so. And as Mr. Moss mentioned, glass is one of those components. Another, which I would urge the commission to take a look into right now, is mixed paper. While most of the world has stopped accepting mixed paper, India remains the last country that's doing so. And while I can't predict the future, I'm told to expect by 2020 that to stop. And we're going to have another big problem on our hands. And again, in a typical market, the market can react to that. But with this artificial constraint, we can't. So we may be back at some point asking for some relief there. With respect to organics, as pointed out earlier, the economics aren't there. They might be in 10 years, but today they're not. And don't take my word for it. I would ask the commission to do its own study and see what it costs, not to dispose of the organics, but to pick it up. Now, this commission, I know, is full aware of the problems with China, because I believe that was one of the reasons we had a rate cap last time. And we appreciated that. It went above and beyond the producer price index. What people might not know is the problem continues. And I submitted with my testimony, which the commission has, 2 charts showing the cost of mixed paper from August 2018, the last time the price went up. We were receiving $10 per ton for that. It actually spiked a little bit, went up to 25. Now it's at 5. So it's half of what it was when the rate cap was last increased. Same thing for cardboard. Everyone knows cardboard went down from a high of $230. Last time the rate cap was increased, it was about 100, 105. That was in August of 18. Today it's about 55. And the cost of processing have gone up. But the actual cost, that's out there in the public domain to see that. For the first time in our company's history, we now have 20% of our customers at the rate cap. And if those customers, you have 2 customers, they're both at the rate cap, same more or less material, and one wants service at a special time, we have 0 incentive to do that because we can't charge anymore, even though the customer wants to pay for that. With respect to cost, because of what's happening in the recycling market, the disposal markets have gone up because there's so much more material. And we saw our rates go up by double digits in 19, and in 20, we know they're going up about another 8%, because we already have agreements in place for that. Our insurance has gone up by over 20%, and costs for side guards, which is mandated by the city, which we fully support, and a new camera system for safety. We want to do the more safe things. We need to be able to recognize the recovery of those costs. So I think the rate cap needs to be increased by a minimum of 25% where it is now, and that's assuming we can finally start having some line items. If not, I think the number is 35. And while this might, at first glance, think, wow, it's a pretty big increase, but the number's just artificially low right now. So we want to continue to be a part of the industry. We want to continue to make it better. I know the people in this room feel that way, and I believe we have. We have to continue to do so. These things cost money. They're not that much when spread across 100,000 customers in the city. But I think together we can get there. We're very happy to provide any other information to support the things that we've said and to answer any questions either now or at a later time. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Tom Toscano.
I will be submitting written testimony, so I'm just going to highlight, a lot of my points were already made, and I'm not going to belabor them. I am not going to testify for an increase. I think the rate cap is an antiquated vestige that should be eliminated. While it is adequate for the majority of customers, it fails to address additional charges for services in new recycling streams. It runs completely counter to the goals espoused by the Business Integrity Commission and the Department of Sanitation. It is at least partially responsible for some of the ills of the industry that zoning purports to address. The biggest area where, and this has already been touched on, is organics. As everyone knows, the traditional market, for the traditional recycling market, prices have collapsed. And the city still wants to do more diversion, which we fully support. Organics can fill that gap. The problem is that under the current cap, the maximum rate for a 5-gallon bucket, which a lot of small producers could produce, they weigh about 30 pounds and the maximum rate's about $4. Subway restaurants are a great example of a company that is excellent at producing very little food waste. They're required under the new laws to recycle food waste. A 5-gallon bucket picked up once a week or once every other week is more than sufficient. But try building up a route on $4 organic buckets that are spread out across the city. In addition, organics have inherent problems to them, like odor control. They require things like some odor controls in the buckets, and they require cleaning. Recently, my company was talking with another company about a joint venture to have some type of cleaning service for these disposal vessels. But as Ron Bergamini correctly said, under the current rules, you're not allowed to charge for these types of services. So again, my company, we've been doing organics since 2007, long before they were required by the city of New York. It's an area I'd love to expand in, but I'm not going to do it if I can't realize a return on the investment of spending that money. I'm going to offer one other example that's further proof that organics simply don't work under the rate cap. And I present the micro-hauler issue. These companies are exempt from many of the BIC regulations, and they use city parks to process the organics at no cost for the land. They also use bicycles and volunteers to pick up the organics, and even with all these preferences, they can't pick it up for the rate cap. I have advertisements for these companies where they're charging $20 a piece for buckets of organics, okay, which I just told you before, you're only allowed to charge $4. We also looked into the possibility of doing separate glass routes. Glass is even more challenging than organics because glass actually costs more to dump than municipal solid waste. Sims, the recycler in the city of New York, wants over 20% more for a ton of glass than they want for a ton of regular garbage. Plus, it has all the other same problems that organics have, it being spread out, and the separation issue and the separate truck issue. Last week, I attended a summit on the vendors in this industry, and one of the vendors had a great product that he put sensors around the truck, and it detects pedestrians and cyclists. And it gives an audible warning whenever the truck is moving and something is in these zones. It was a great piece of technology. I did the math, and it cost my company over 6 figures to install this on every single one of my trucks. The great thing about safety is, in addition to being the right thing to do, it does pay for itself. But throw into the mix an environment where you have sort of a race to the bottom with pricing and no cap for organics, and the fact that you have this existential threat out there of zoning that may put my company out of business, and it raises a serious question whether to invest in these things. The city needs to recognize the roles that its policies have played in the creation of the current environment. Even if the advocates of zoning are correct regarding the benefits, and I don't believe that they are, you're still going to have a 4-year period minimum where the current system will exist side by side. How safe will companies be knowing they will not be around? With all these factors, it is not the time to reduce the conversation with the industry. It's time to work together towards making things better, and removing the antiquated vestige of the rate cap will go a long way towards that end. I implore you to do so. Thank you.
Is there anyone who is not signed in that would like to testify before we close the hearing? Seeing none, we will now close the record for this hearing. As a reminder, we will continue to accept written comments through the close of business on November 7th. This hearing is now closed. The time is 10:32. Thank you.